This is Ben Weinman from the Dillinger Escape Plan, and we will be heading over to Australia in August to do our first album, Calculating Infinity, in its entirety. And we can't wait.
Fantastic, Ben. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
My pleasure. So, as you say, the Dillinger Escape Plan recently announced and run shows for Australia, starting in Perth on August 10th and hitting Adelaide,
Yep.
Melbourne, and Sydney before finishing in Brisbane on August the 17th. Like, pretty exciting times, mate. It came out of the blue. No one expected it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's been a lot of years, and it was something. It was kind of a tough decision to make, but we're really sure we did. We're really glad we did it because we've been having a really good time.
Yeah, and you mentioned that you're celebrating the release of your debut album, Calculating Infinity. So you will be playing that in full, but I get the impression you guys aren't the sort that's going to be playing it front to back. You're going to be mixing up a bit.
Yeah, so we also been playing our an EP that we put out with our original singer before that called Under the Running Board, and then also cuts from our very first early stuff that we did when we first started the band, and then we're doing we try to do some covers, a different cover every night, and we're just having a good time up there, man. But it is definitely the first time we've done all that kind of early material all back to back like that, so it's been interesting and challenging.
I bet you, because like when you made those albums, I couldn't imagine you ever would have thought about playing them in their entirety. So there would have been songs on there that would have been studio specials. Like, has it been difficult translating some of that live?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, when I was writing that stuff, I wrote it like I couldn't play any of it. Like I just was like, let me write songs I can't play, and then I better learn how to play. I better get good enough to play them. So yeah, I mean, there's the later incarnation of the band did play some older songs from those albums, but there are a lot of them that we hadn't played in a very, very long time, if ever. So those ones were definitely more challenging because we just didn't even have the muscle memory.
Yeah, true. And so the band is renowned for your live performances, bro. Like, are they still wild and spontaneous, or has age mellowed you a little bit?
I think I think it's pretty wild up there still. It's pretty wild. It's pretty dangerous. And it's definitely unpredictable. Um, yeah, I have to say it's definitely still very unpredictable. We never ever think about performance or things like that. We always try and just be completely uninhibited expression. That's very important to us. So like, sometimes I don't even want to really look out at the crowd, even at sound check or anything. I don't want to have any indication of what to expect. And it's continued to be that way. Although I think back in the day when we were first writing these songs, we had a lot more people looking at us with disgust than with enjoyment. So that's different.
Do you have to put yourself like in a mindset or a psyche to go out there? So what do you guys do? It's not human, some of the shit you guys do. Like, do you have to work yourself up into that person?
Yeah, I guess like maybe the difference between me now when I was younger is I just maybe stretch my hands a little bit,
Mhm.
stuff like that, prepare a little more because I'm like, oh man, I had some gluten, my hands don't work so good, I'm good. But but other than that, I think for me, I can say one of the main aspects of turning on the Dillinger performance is that I'm always nervous. I'm never not nervous. I've never stepped on stage unnervous. So I think that feeling of I still feel to this day everyone out there is going to hate us. We're playing to a pack of wild wolves, and it's just stayed with maybe it's trauma from when we were younger, but like it does. I feel like we wrote music that wasn't supposed to be enjoyed, and we really wrote an album that was just for us, and it ended up working. And so I, I really feel that the fact that we're going out there still like not even knowing what the reception would be to some degree, at least mentally, and the nerves is what turns it on because you either you either get up on stage and like unleash the beast, or you just turn around and hover into a little ball and, you know, play facing the drums. And so it's one or the other, you know.
True that. Now, the album Calculating Infinity means so much to so many people around the world, bro. But to you personally, what does that album mean 26 years later?
Uh, well, for one, I can't believe how young I was when we were writing that stuff. Like, um, and I look at kids that age and I'm like, you lazy fuck. Seriously? Like, we were making Calculating Infinity and you're like cutting and pasting 5 riffs and being calling it a song, you know?
So true.
Come on, man. You can do better than that, you know?
So, what are some of your memories of making it? Like, do you remember specific albums for different reasons?
Definitely. And the main thing I remember about Calculating Infinity was that we had just started getting some local recognition, um, and people started getting an expectation of what they wanted from us, or what they, you know, thought we would produce, not only from a live show perspective because of the kind of the mythology of the band of being this wild, really crazy show, but also the fact that our music was so intense and extreme, and you know, going in directions that people weren't used to, I guess. So we really had like kind of a unique vocabulary by the time were going to finish this full length album. And right when that happened, our bass player was in a car accident and paralyzed. Um, and then our other guitar player decided he was quitting the band. He never thought it would work out. He's kind of doesn't want to commit and wants to go to school and do computers. So he like bailed. And it was just very stressful for me because now it was like we had created some pretty intense, really, you know, kind of unique music. And now it was all on me to like play every instrument on the album, except, you know, the drums, obviously. And for me and our drummer to like really push the envelope and make music. So there, I remember being really just being like having full on major imposter syndrome,
All
like
right.
really feeling like, man, there's no way we can do this album. There's no way. You know, the other guitar player was a better guitar player than me. Our bass player was a prodigy and the coolest dude ever. What are we gonna do? You know, and I think I maybe overcompensated a little bit, and just like I just said again, like the nerves, you either cower into a ball or you just turn around and you attack and you go full on. And so that's what it was. It was like, all right, once it was time to go, we just went in there and put everything into it. And we recorded that whole album to tape, not to Pro Tools.
Oh,
We weren't looking at a screen. There was no screen. You know, we did it in like 2 weeks. It was just it was a totally different time. So part of me feels like I don't know how we even did it, how we pulled it off, and um, not sure we could even do that again.
all right. And so around that time, like the Dillinger Escape Plan formed in New Jersey in 1997 with yourself, Adam, Kris, and Dimitri. So what was the musical climate like that gave birth to the Dillinger Escape Plan? And where did you fit into the scene when you first came into it?
Well, we didn't fit in really well at all. We came from a little town that didn't have much of a scene, but there was in New Jersey a lot going on the underground. And so we would travel around to different college towns like New Brunswick, and we'd go to the city, New York City. It was a short train ride for us, and we'd see all these bands, but you know, they were very kind of formulaic. So we had heard about all the hardcore and punk bands coming from DC and New York, and there was the bands like, you know, the Bad Brains and Black Flag from the West Coast, and bands like the Cro-Mags and Agnostic Front from New York that were dangerous and unpredictable and pushing limits. But by the time we started playing in that scene, everything was kind of not that dangerous, not that unpredictable. it was a lot of bands writing music that they thought like sounded like that, but it didn't have the um the passion or the like emotion behind it. It was just like, we like this band, let's make a punk band, you know. A lot of a lot of people who were just more into an agenda or like a political thing, or it was vegan, or they were a Christian metal band, or there was all these kind of different things going on. So we really had just given up on our previous bands, and Dillinger was really kind of like, all right, we are going to put everything that has influenced us from like technical music and fusion and electronic music, and then apply it to this scene where you can play in a basement and just play wherever, and have a show in front of whoever. You can do the show yourself. You can put out the music yourself. So there was that DIY element that we liked. And ultimately, we want to create that unpredictability and that danger that we heard about. And in order to do that, we had to do something more extreme, different, polarizing, like those bands did in the 80s and 70s.
And was that all trial and error coming up with that sound? Like how much of what you started off with did you keep, and how did you know what was right, I guess, back then? Because no one else was really doing it as well anyway.
Yeah. Well, I tell people all the time, like kids ask me about music and things. I'm like, everyone, the most original bands typically just imitate poorly, you know, and then it becomes something original. Unfortunately, we live in a time now where there is a blueprint of how to do everything. You can look
Yeah.
on YouTube or and just you have the blueprint, which I think does limit originality. But yeah, I mean, I think like it's a lot of happy accidents and things that are really naturally happening because of the group of people together, the music we're listening to, and what we're doing, and it ends up turning into something that doesn't exist, and you have to just recognize that and say, oh, that actually is a part of our vocabulary now. Maybe we intended it to be more like this, or maybe by the time we all messed with it and kept messing with it and didn't, maybe we had limitations, we didn't have the same gear that other people had, or so in an attempt to kind of incorporate all our influences in a way that didn't sound like different genres. We wanted to sound like one piece of music that was influenced by everything that we were listening to. And so doing that and making a lot of mistakes and then recognizing the mistakes and be like, that's cool, that's our thing, and continuously building on that vocabulary, I think is really what created our sound.
Yeah, nice. And you mentioned like the difficulties you faced personally, like with the member changes earlier on, but Dimitri left after Calculating Infinity. So that would have been, was that a difficult period for you?
It was because we started the band together, and he was one of my best friends. He still is one of my best friends. So it was an exciting time. It was a scary time. We were really about to embark on a period of our lives where we were throwing everything to the side in order to do this. I had like a corporate job and stock options and all that stuff, and like a steady girlfriend, and we just let it all go to go just like sleep on benches and sleep on people's floors and like really push this as far as possible, because we were in a position where we were getting opportunities that we never thought we would get, but they weren't necessarily like financially viable things. So we had to make the choice to really just suck it up and just do it, because so many bands would have loved these opportunities. We were getting offers to play in like Japan on a festival or something like that. And at some point we're like, we got to quit our jobs and we just got to go do this.
And of course, you got Greg into the band after that. But what was the selection process like for a new singer? Like, did you hold everyone up against Dimitri, or were you looking for someone with a bit of pizzazz themselves?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, while we were looking for a singer, we did an EP with Mike Patton, um, and that was interesting because we toured with Mike Patton and Mr. Bungle with Dimitri in the band, and we had a great time. We became friends with those guys, really inspired. Patton was always a real advocate for us and a fan of what we were doing. And then when we were in this transition period, we had a couple songs. I sent them to Mike. He was into them, and we decided to just like do this kind of EP, this like Dillinger featuring Mike Patton thing. And I think because people trust Mike to do they he kind of has a license to do whatever he wants over music.
Yeah.
You know, there's not many often like melodic singing over heavy music can be rather cheesy. You know, like this is kind of not often into it. It could be pretty bad, but someone like Mike can make it always cool and good. So having someone like Mike sing over that kind of music and do so much diversity create a scenario where we both had a license now to do so much more moving forward, but we also had some pretty hard shoes to fill, you know? So we definitely wanted somebody who could do everything Dimitri was doing, but also take us, into the future and do new things as well.
Yeah, nice. And then Dimitri got back up with you for 2 shows just before the 8-year hiatus of the band on December 28th and 29th in 2017. So what was that like? Like at that point of time, could you feel the seeds of a potential reunion growing, or was it just strictly one off then?
No, there was no thought of doing reunion at all, honestly.
Huh?
Definitely, it was not one of those things where a band breaks up just in order to get back together.
Yeah.
Like, one of those tricks, it really
Yeah.
was never anything like that. We were done. I mean, I was done at least. I was very, very adamant about that. I even got a tattoo that said like Dillinger RIP 2017, so that it was like final. Like this was, a thing. Like I was not gonna add a show, or it was like this is it. 20 years, that is it. That's it. It was and I will say it was really fun seeing him up there in front of that many people. And he sounded great, and it really felt like a great ending, and it all brought it all together in a nice way. But they're definitely the majority of people who got in this band never got to see those songs, and certainly not with him. So when the 25th anniversary came around and people were coming to us asking us, it just kind of felt good,
Tim, what have you done with the tattoo now, bro? Have you got a cover up, or have you changed it?
No, man, I still feel like that was the death of the band, and this is more like a celebration of our past,
Yeah, very cool. So do you think like how much of this reunion tour is fueled by fans' desire to have the band back, and how much is yours for unfinished business, I guess?
Well, we put the first show on sale, and it was really quickly that we decided. It wasn't even that much time between like feeling, agreeing to do this and actually announcing it. And we ended up like, we knew we might do 2 nights if it did well, but it ended up selling out 3 nights in like an hour or something, like very, like just instantly. And that was super surprising, because it ended up doing far better than even our final Dillinger shows. So the fact that there were so many people who wanted to see this, even in this form of the band, and we did. There was so much more movement. I mean, the final shows were exciting, and the tickets sold quick, and like it was amazing. But like to see that there was even more interest now, than there was when we fully announced this is it. This is your last chance to see us. That's pretty. That was pretty. Felt pretty crazy, and so I think like the additional shows we've been playing is definitely because of the fans, and the fact that we're having a good time. We're just having a good time together as friends, and like enjoying it. We're hanging out, together, and we're enjoying it, and we're playing music that was important to our youth. And there's a lot of people who still want to see it. So it's kind of like we're playing it by ear. Like if there's a real need for it and people really want it, we entertain it. There's no plan. We don't have a plan with it, but we're definitely not closing the door to playing shows here and there.